There is a woman, oh yes, there is a woman, who lays her head upon a pillow untouched by another's breath, whose hands do not seek warmth in the dark, and the world in its hush whispers, "Poor thing." But let me tell you, my dear, that woman is no tragedy. She is the quiet storm, the unshaken tree, the fire that needs no wind to roar. When the night wraps itself around her, it does not come as a thief stealing companionship. No, it kneels before her like a servant, offering stillness, offering peace. She stretches her limbs across the bed, her bed, and claims every inch of it, not as a widow, not as an abandoned heart, but as a conqueror. Society will tell her, a woman alone is half a woman, but she knows. Oh, she knows. She is whole. She is full. She is full. She is the architect of her own joy, the sculptor of her own destiny. While others sleep tangled in compromise, she dreams in freedom. And when the sun rises, it does not rise for her, it rises because of her. Because the earth knows a woman who sleeps alone is not waiting to be chosen. She has already chosen herself. So let them whisper, let them wonder. While they sleep in the shadow of another's breath, she breathes fire. And the world will learn to say not poor thing, but powerful thing. That is the woman who sleeps alone. And she is magnificent. A woman who sleeps alone is not lonely. She is complete. She is not a half waiting to be filled, not a puzzle missing its pieces. No, she is the whole picture, the full song, the unbroken circle. When the night falls and the world quiets, she does not reach for a hand that isn't there. She reaches inward and finds herself. Solid, unshaken, enough. People will tell her that an empty bed is a sad bed. They will say, "Don't you want someone to keep you warm?" But what they don't understand is that she is the warmth. She is the fire. The space beside her is not a void, it is a choice, a declaration, a testament to the fact that she refuses to shrink herself into the shape of someone else's expectations. She would rather sleep alone than lose herself in the arms of the wrong love. There is strength in her solitude, a kind of power that comes from knowing she doesn't need another to be whole. She has danced with her own shadow, sung to her own heart, held her own hand through the hardest nights. And in that quiet, in that stillness, she has discovered something sacred, herself, unfiltered, unapologetic, unafraid. The world may pity her, but she does not pity herself. She knows the truth, that loneliness does not live in an empty bed, but in an empty soul. And her soul? Oh, it spills over with dreams, with courage, with the unshakable knowledge that she is more than enough. She does not sleep in lack. She sleeps in abundance, in freedom, in the kind of peace that only comes when you stop waiting for someone else to complete you and realize you were never broken to begin with. Some will call her stubborn, some will call her proud, but she knows the real word for it. Alive. Fully, fiercely alive. She has tasted love, yes, but she has also tasted her own strength, and she will never unlearn the sweetness of it. So when the lights go out and the moon paints her room in silver, she does not weep for what isn't there. She smiles for what is, her breath, her body, her boundless spirit. The bed may be hers alone, but the night, the future, the life she is building, those belong to her too. And she will fill them not with someone else's presence, but with her own light, because a woman who sleeps alone does not sleep in emptiness. She sleeps in power. And when she wakes, the sun rises to meet her, not as half of something, but as everything. A woman without a husband is not a woman without love. She is a woman in love with her own becoming. Every morning she wakes not to the expectations of a partner, but to the limitless possibility of herself. She is not defined by we or us, but by the most powerful word in any language, I. And in that I she finds galaxies. Society whispers that a woman alone is a woman unfinished, like a book missing its last chapter. But she knows the truth. She is not half-written. She is the author, the ink, the story unfolding in real time. Without a husband, she is not without direction. She is the compass. She decides her own north. She maps her own destiny. The mirror reflects no one's face but hers, and in that reflection she sees not absence, but absolute presence. There is a sacred rebellion in defining yourself outside of love's old scripts. She refuses to play the role of wife if it means erasing woman. She wears no ring, but her hands are full, holding dreams, turning pages, building a life that fits her heartbeat, not someone else's rhythm. She dances in her kitchen to music only she chooses. She paints walls, colors others might call too bold. She spends evenings not waiting for a key in the door, but savoring the silence that lets her thoughts bloom wild and untamed. Oh, but they'll ask her, don't you get lonely? As if loneliness were a monster that only marriage could slay. But she knows loneliness visits everyone, even those sharing beds. The difference? She faces hers head on. She sits with it, learns its contours, and discovers an astonishing truth. Solitude is not the enemy, it is the teacher. In the quiet, she hears her own voice for the first time, clear, unedited, roaring. She has no husband to blame for her unhappiness, no partner to credit for her joy. The weight and wonder of her life rest entirely in her own hands. That is the terrifying, exhilarating freedom of self-discovery. She is forced to confront who she really is, not as a lover, not as a wife, but as a soul unleashed. And what she finds is breathtaking. She is stronger than she knew, braver than she imagined, more vibrant than anyone ever told her. The world spins stories of women saved by love, but she is writing a different tale, one where she saves herself, where she is both the damsel and the dragon, the explorer and the treasure. She is not waiting for a man to bring her flowers. She is planting her own garden, and when it blooms, oh, when it blooms, the colors will be hers alone. No, a woman without a husband is not missing anything. She is too busy finding everything herself, her power, her unchained, unbridled, unstoppable freedom. And that, darling, is the most thrilling discovery of all. That bed, oh, that empty bed is not a tragedy, it's a throne. Every night when she stretches across the sheets with no one to answer to, no compromises to make, no space to shrink herself to fit, she is claiming her divine right to take up space. This is no sad surrender to loneliness. This is a daily coronation. She remembers the nights spent twisting herself into pretzels to please a partner, the way she used to tiptoe around someone else's moods, someone else's needs, someone else's fragile ego. Now, the only heartbeats in that room are hers. The only dreams disturbing the sheets belong to her. The silence isn't absence. It's sacred space where she gets to remember who she was before the world told her she needed to be half of something. People whisper behind her back, poor thing, sleeping alone at her age. But what they don't see is the glorious rebellion in those empty sheets. Their bed is where she rediscovers herself, inch by inch, where she learns to love the sound of her own breathing, where she spreads out like the queen she is, claiming territory that was always rightfully hers. There's power in those solitary nights that partnered folks will never understand. Power in choosing your own bedtime, your own breakfast, your own life without committee. Power in realizing you can be your own best company, that you don't need another heartbeat in the dark to feel complete, that your own rhythm is enough. She's learning the most dangerous truth a woman can know, that she was never incomplete to begin with, that marriage isn't graduation for women, it's just one possible path, that her worth isn't measured in diamond rings or shared last names, but in the quiet courage it takes to stand alone in a world that insists women should always be leaning on someone. Those sheets hold her secrets, her dreams, her unfiltered self. No performative femininity here, no pretending, just raw, real woman, stretch marks, bad moods, midnight snacks and all. This is where she practices the radical act of being wholly, unapologetically herself. Let them call her lonely. She knows the truth. There's nothing lonely about freedom, nothing sad about self-possession. That empty bed is actually overflowed with peace, with autonomy, with the kind of deep self-acknowledge that only comes when you stop trying to be someone else's missing piece and realize you were the whole puzzle all along. So she'll keep stretching across those sheets like the queen she is, keep turning down the volume on the world's pity, keep writing her own story in the empty spaces. Because this isn't sleeping alone. This is sleeping in power. And once a woman tastes that kind of freedom, she'll never settle for anything less. The world celebrates love stories with fireworks and fanfare, but her victories whisper. They don't make grand announcements when she conquers another lonely night. No one throws confetti when she chooses herself for the 100th silent time. These are private revolutions, fought in the quiet spaces between sunset and dawn, where no one sees but the moon and God. She knows the ache of empty hands that remember holding someone, the particular pain of turning off the lamp alone again, the way silence can sometimes feel like judgment. But here's what they don't tell you. Every time she endures that ache without running to fill it with just any warm body, she wins. Every morning she wakes still choosing her own dignity over desperate companionship. She becomes stronger than she knew possible. These battles leave no visible scars. No medals are given for the night she cries into her pillow but still refuses to call him. No certificates celebrate when she deletes his number for the 7th time. The courage it takes to sit with loneliness rather than betray yourself doesn't get parades. But make no mistake, these are warrior moments. Every quiet no to settling, every whispered yes to self-respect is changing her at the molecular level. The most powerful transformations happen in darkness. Seeds split open, underground where no one cheers. Caterpillars dissolve to soup in their cocoons before becoming butterflies. And she's doing her becoming in the secret hours, where no Instagram post can cheapen the sacred work of putting herself back together. The world sees a single woman. What they're missing is the phoenix rising from ashes no one watched burn. She's collecting invisible trophies. The first night she slept straight through without checking her phone. The morning she realized she'd stopped expecting his call. The moment her reflection started smiling back at her like an old friend rather than a stranger. These are private celebrations, but they run deeper than any anniversary dinner ever could. People measure success in weddings and anniversaries, but she's counting different milestones. The day her solitude turned from punishment to peace. The evening she cooked an elaborate meal just for herself and didn't feel silly. The morning she woke realizing she'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. These quiet triumphs are rewriting her story in ink only she can see. The world may never give her credit for these victories. There's no Hallmark card for congratulations on not settling. No balloons for way to choose yourself again today, but she doesn't need their applause. The real reward is looking in the mirror and recognizing the woman staring back, not as half of something, but as whole, complete, enough. So let them celebrate their noisy milestones. She's building something far more precious, a life where her own approval is enough, where silence isn't absence, but presence, where every uncelebrated act of self-love is another stitch in the tapestry of her becoming. These quiet victories may not make headlines, but they are making her, and that's more than enough. She stands at the center of her life like a queen surveying her kingdom, every decision hers alone to make. No compromises coloring the walls a shade she hates, no surrendering the remote control of her existence. This is the revolutionary act of a woman choosing herself, not as last resort, but as first priority. Not because she couldn't find love, but because she found something rarer, the courage to be complete without it. Every morning she wakes to a life designed by her own hands, what to eat, where to go, who to become. These choices aren't diluted by committee. She answers to no one's whims but her own. The bed may be empty of another body, but it overflows with something more precious. autonomy. The freedom to stretch across the sheets like the miracle she is, without apology, without explanation, without shrinking to make space for someone else's ego. They call it loneliness when a woman sleeps alone, but never say what they really mean. They're terrified of the power that comes with solitude, of what happens when a woman realizes she doesn't need permission to exist fully, that she can be her own sanctuary, that the most important relationship she'll ever have is the one she nurtures with herself. She's learned the secret they don't teach in school. Being chosen feels good for a moment, but choosing yourself lasts a lifetime. That first time she said no to wrong love was like breaking chains she didn't know bound her. Every no since has been a love letter to her future self. Every yes to solitude, another brick in the foundation of her sovereignty. People whisper that she's too picky, as if standards were flaws rather than survival skills. They don't understand. She's not waiting for Prince Charming. She's become the hero of her own story. The princess who realized she never needed saving, just space to remember her own strength. The queen who traded a crown of dependency for the messy, glorious freedom of self-rule. There's fire in this kind of independence. Not the dramatic blaze of rebellion, but the steady glow of a woman who's come home to herself, who's traded the exhausting performance of coupled life for the radical honesty of solitude, who's discovered that the most passionate love affair of her life is the one she's having with her own soul. Let them call her selfish. She knows the truth. This is self-love in its purest form. Not the narcissistic kind that blinds, but the revolutionary kind that clears vision, the kind that says, I matter, without needing someone else's agreement. The kind that plants flags in the territory of her own being and declares, this land is enough, more than enough, abundant, so she'll keep choosing herself, her peace, her wholeness. Not as consolation prize, but as grand prize, because she's discovered the delicious irony. Only when you stop needing someone to complete you, do you become truly complete. And that's power no ring could ever contain.